This video is from the course Introduction. It's designed for complete beginners and assumes you have no knowledge of the subject matter. If you are interested in more beginner, intermediate, or advanced content, check out our website SUBMETA.io. At the end of each lesson, we'll be covering how you should be training these techniques that you learn. So there's two types of training we will recommend: drilling and specific training. Drilling is where you're practicing against a non-resisting opponent, getting used to the sequence and the steps involved in the movement. Specific training is when we take the position you've been working and we isolate that position and use that in live sparring. It is really important that you do these types of training. It's very difficult to just watch a movement and then try to execute it in live training. You need to practice it with drilling or specific training. At the end of each lesson, we're going to tell you how to train the techniques that you've learned. It's really important you have a well-structured approach about implementing what you've learned into your training so you can use it in live scenarios. What we don't want you to do is watch the techniques, assume that you know it, and try to do it in live sparring where there's too many variables at play. Drilling is where we repeat the movement on essentially a non-resisting opponent, and we're going to repeat that movement with the idea of getting used to the steps required and making sure you hit all the details along the way. When we do drilling, we tend to set a timer as opposed to going by reps, just because sometimes for you, it might take 5 minutes to get through 10 repetitions, whereas for your partner, it might take them 3 minutes. And it's better if you set a timer so each person gets the same amount of time allocated to their own training. The most important thing when you're drilling is that you're paying attention to the steps and you're hitting each point along the way. We do it at a slow pace, and essentially if you can't at a slow pace hit all the steps along the way with a movement, you shouldn't be expecting that you can actually do this in live training yet. When you drill a technique a lot, eventually it becomes subconscious. You don't have to think about the steps, they just occur. And then when you're rolling, you can be thinking about whether you're choosing the right time to do the move as the move executes itself. There's quite a lot of content even in the introduction course, so it's important that you just get one side good at first. So you're really trying to get an understanding of the technique, how it works, and what works and feels right for you. We recommend you practice one side as opposed to both so that you're not doubling up on the amount of information your body needs to learn. The second type of training is a progression from drilling that we call specific training. So once you have an understanding of each of the steps of the movement, we now want to use live resistance to test it and train it. So what's important to learn is that we get repeated attempts at the technique we're learning and we pay attention to any errors or mistakes we make so that we can correct them. By doing specific training, you narrow down the variables that can be at play because you're training from a very specific point. It might be that we start at the start of the technique that we showed and we go from there. And as soon as you're out of position, you reset and you go back to that same spot and you try again, trying to fix any errors that you made. And this is a great way of leading in from drilling, using then specific training. And by the end of doing both of these, you should start to feel comfortable to use a technique in rolling. It's likely that in training, you're probably going to do some rolling as well, which is just free for all. You go in and you try and submit your opponent, they try to submit you. And with that, we want you to still try to do the moves you've learned. There's a lot of scientific research that shows if you train with a specific goal in mind, your improvement will be much faster. Another thing that's been shown to improve learning is spaced repetition, which is where over time, we come back and we review the content that we've covered and try to implement it again. It's a great way of storing the information in your long-term memory. So we recommend that after you tried practicing these techniques, that you go back and you review the footage and you see if there's anything that you missed, were there any details that you could pick up that you didn't pick up the first time, and then re-implement them again using more drilling and more specific training. At this stage, we recommend you train this way twice a week. If you've got a training partner that's going through the same course, that's the best possible outcome. And if you can't practice this in your class time, it's possible that during your classes, you aren't able to work on your own thing, then you probably have something at your gym called an open mat. That's where you can come in and work on whatever you want. It's a great time to implement the material from this course. I hope you enjoyed this video from the course Introduction on SUBMETA.io. If you go to SUBMETA.io, you can watch this course for free, uninterrupted, with exercises to help you with recall. Also for free, we have the follow-up course to this, Foundations 1, Escapes, which builds on the content you'll be learning in this course.